the $299 electric car that terrified TESL while the world was busy watching Elon Musk unveil another futuristic Tesla model and Chinese giant BYD flood the market with their electric vehicles. Something happened in India that no one saw coming. Something so unexpected that when the news finally broke, automotive engineers around the world stopped what they were doing and asked the same question. How is this even possible? India just launched a fully functional electric car for $299, not $2,990, not $29, $299. That's roughly 175,000 rupees. To put that in perspective, that's less than most people spend on a decent laptop, less than a high-end smartphone. And yet, this isn't a toy. It's a real car, with 4 wheels, a motor, a battery, and legal permission to drive on public roads. The automotive industry has spent decades telling us that electric vehicles are the future, but they come with a premium price tag. Even Tesla's so-called affordable models start at $25,000. Budget EVs from China hover around $10,000 to $15,000. But $299, that number doesn't just break the mold. It shatters every assumption about what's possible in modern manufacturing. And here's what makes this even more interesting. This car didn't come from a global powerhouse with unlimited R&D budgets. It came from a small Indian startup that most people had never heard of until a few weeks ago. No massive marketing campaign, no celebrity endorsements, just a simple vehicle that showed up in a market and made everyone else look like they'd been overcharging for years. But before we dive into how they pulled this off, there's something you need to understand about what was happening in India, while the rest of the world wasn't paying attention. Over the past 3 years, India's electric vehicle market didn't just grow, it exploded. In 2023 alone, over 1.5 million electric vehicles were sold across the country. That's a 50% jump from the previous year. These aren't just numbers on a sales report. These represent actual people, ordinary middle-class families, and working professionals, who decided that electric was no longer a luxury experiment but a practical choice. And this shift didn't happen by accident. The Indian government launched something called FAME 2, a subsidy program that puts money directly into the pockets of EV buyers. State governments followed with their own incentives. Road tax waived, registration fees gone. Suddenly, the math that never quite worked for electric vehicles started making sense. Charging stations began appearing not just in major metros but in smaller towns, on highways, in mall parking lots. The infrastructure was quietly being built. While everyone was watching what was happening in America and Europe, India was becoming the 3rd largest EV market in the world. And most international observers completely missed it. Which brings us back to that $299 car, the Yakuza Mini EV. When you first see it, you might think it looks like something a child designed. It's small, compact, almost cute, in a way that serious car enthusiasts might find insulting. But that's exactly the point. This car wasn't designed for people who care about 0 to 60 times or premium leather interiors. It was designed for a 22-year-old delivery driver in Mumbai who spends 8 hours a day in traffic, for a college student in Bangalore who can't afford the rising cost of petrol, for a small business owner who needs to move around the city without emptying their wallet every week at the fuel station. The Yakuza Mini is 120 to 150 kilometers on a single charge. That might sound limiting, but think about how most people actually use their cars. Daily commutes, school runs, grocery trips, local deliveries. You're not driving across the country every day. You're navigating crowded city streets where a smaller vehicle is actually an advantage, where parking is a nightmare and every inch of space matters. 6 to 7 hours to fully charge on a standard home outlet. Plug it in before bed, wake up, ready to go. If you're in a hurry, a fast charger gets you to 80% in 3 hours. The battery, lithium iron phosphate, the same technology Tesla recently started using in their affordable models. It doesn't overheat. It lasts longer. It's safer in high-temperature environments, which matters a lot when you're dealing with Indian summers that regularly cross 45 degrees Celsius. But here's where things get really interesting. And this is where the story starts to get uncomfortable for the big players in the automotive world. How does a car this cheap actually exist? That's the question that's been keeping automotive executives up at night. Because if India figured out how to do this, what does that say about everyone else's pricing? The answer comes down to something the company calls the micro-component strategy. But it's really about a much simpler idea. What if you stopped adding things nobody actually needs? Most modern cars, especially electric ones, are packed with features that sound impressive in a showroom but add massive costs to the final price. Advanced AI systems, massive touchscreen displays, sensors everywhere, high-performance motors designed for speeds you'll never legally reach. Yakuza Auto looked at all of this and asked a very uncomfortable question. What if we Didn't the Yakuza Mini has a small digital display? It shows your speed, battery level, range, and basic indicators. That's it. No 10-inch touchscreen, no voice-activated AI assistant, just the information you actually need to drive. The motor isn't designed for thrilling acceleration. It's designed to be stable, efficient, and cheap to maintain. The interior isn't luxury. It's functional. Decent seat covers, basic air conditioning, power windows in higher variants. And here's the part that really matters. Every single component is made in India. Not imported from China and assembled locally. Actually manufactured from scratch within Indian borders. No import duties, no shipping costs, no complex international supply chains. When Tesla builds a car, components might travel from China to America to Europe and back. The Yakuza Mini's entire journey happens within a few hundred kilometers. The assembly process is simpler too. Where a luxury car might have 25 screws holding a single panel in place, the Yakuza has 5. Not because it's poorly made, but because someone sat down and figured out that 20 of those screws weren't actually necessary. Every part was designed to be easy to manufacture, easy to assemble, and easy to repair. This is what the company won't say out loud, but it's obvious when you look at the numbers. Every other car company has been optimizing for profit margins, brand prestige, and feature lists that look good in advertisements. Yakuza Auto optimized for a single question: how cheap can we make this while still being safe and functional? And they found a number that no one thought was possible. But there's something else happening here that goes beyond just clever cost-cutting, something that reveals why this car has caused such chaos. In international markets, when the news broke that India had launched a $299 EV, it wasn't just automotive blogs that picked up the story. CNN ran it. Bloomberg covered it. TechCrunch wrote multiple articles. The Verge published an analysis. This wasn't just interesting. This was threatening, because if a small Indian startup can build an electric car for $299, what exactly have the big manufacturers been doing? Tesla has been promising a $25,000 affordable model for years. That's 83 times more expensive than what Yakuza just delivered. Chinese manufacturers talk about their budget EVs in the $10,000 range. That's still 33 times the price. The global reaction wasn't celebration. It was confusion mixed with something that looked a lot like panic. Automotive analysts started asking questions nobody wanted to answer. Is India about to become the next EV manufacturing hub? Will these cars get exported to Africa, South America, Southeast Asia, markets where most people can't afford a $25,000 vehicle, but could absolutely afford $299? And here's the question that really makes this story bigger than just one cheap car. What if the entire global automotive industry has been building electric vehicles the wrong way? What if the assumption that EVs need to be expensive, premium products was always wrong? What if affordability isn't about waiting for battery costs to come down or technology to mature, but about completely rethinking what a car needs to be? The Yakuza Mini EV isn't perfect. It's not fast. It's not luxurious. It won't impress anyone at a valet stand, but it has a reverse camera with parking assist. It has a digital locking system to prevent theft. It has battery management systems that monitor temperature and automatically prevent overheating. It has safety belt reminders and emergency cutoff protection. It has everything a person actually needs to get from point A to point B safely and reliably, without spending money they don't have on fuel they can't afford, and it costs less than a used motorcycle in most countries. This is what happens when you design for the billions of people who've been priced out of the automotive revolution. Instead of designing for the millions who can already afford whatever they want, this is what happens when good enough becomes the goal instead of best. Possible? This is what happens when a market that everyone ignored suddenly shows everyone else how it should have been done all along. Yakuza Mini EV isn't just a cheap car. It's a question that the entire automotive industry now has to answer. And the longer they take to respond, the more uncomfortable that question becomes.